Hi friends, welcome or welcome back to the channel. Thank you for clicking on today's video, and if you saw by that title, we are doing my April wrap-up. April was a pretty decent reading month for me. I think I read, hold on, y'all know I don't be remembering these numbers. I be having to refer. I read a total of 12 books, and no, that's March, sorry. I read a total of 11 books, and only two of them were short stories. First, I want to say, if it sounds like I'm talking weird, it's because I am. I just had my wisdom teeth removed literally a week ago from today, and my healing process has been interesting. My right side was just normal. It's healing fine. Like, the hole is still there, but it's closing. It only really hurts if like food gets back there. My left side though, which is probably the side you guys see is not moving as much, is the side that's like taking me through hell and back. Unfortunately, the way the teeth were impacted, they had to remove a lot more bone to get the tooth out. And let's just say I'm feeling the effects of it. Like, everything looks good, no dry socket or anything. It is just unfortunately the healing process. But overall, process is good, everything looks good. It's just unfortunately the healing process just takes time. So hopefully, you know, by next week my left side is feeling what my right side feels like right now. But I really did want to get this video out for you guys, so I'm like, I done took some Tylenol, so hopefully, you know, the pain subsides in like the next few minutes, because it's been like 20 minutes since I've taken the Tylenol, and so usually that's been helping, so we will see. I'm gonna stop yapping and let's get into what I read this month. I finished a series this month, and I am so proud of myself because, as y'all know, I filmed like a series I'm in the middle of, which this series wasn't even included in that because I hadn't even started this series yet. So it's just funny that this is a series that I finished, but it's fine. At least I finished it, right? So I read the third book in the Lark Cove series, which is Tragic, and this one focuses on Piper and Kane, which I don't want to like spoil it because it's like the third book, but basically Piper goes through a divorce, and she decides to move to Lark Cove for her job, and she meets Kane, who is kind of like this just tortured person. Like, he is just like his experiences over the last few years has just like made him isolate himself in Lark Cove, and so they become neighbors, and you know, they kind of create this like friends with benefits thing. But obviously it's romance, so we know it turns into more. But I really liked it, and also just finding out what was happening with Kane and seeing Piper grow like from her divorce, because y'all, that man that she was with, toxic. So yeah, I think I gave this one, I gave it a 3 stars. It wasn't my favorite. It was probably honestly my least favorite out of the series, but I still enjoyed it. Like, it was perfect for like while I was reading fantasy. It did take, like I said, it took me a while to get through it, but overall I really did enjoy it. And yeah, Devney Perry, I'm just like a Devney Perry stan now. I read the second book in the Mortal Instruments world, which is The City of Ashes. This one I gave 4 stars. I think this one kind of moved a little bit slower in my opinion than the first one. The first one like kept me hooked the entire time, whereas this one, it was a little easier to put down, but it was still a good story. It just like was moving just a little bit on the slower end, but once it did pick up, it got really interesting. We got to know more about like the history of like the shadow hunters, and basically like the big event, like a lot of stuff was revealed in this book, and yeah, I just really like we got to meet Valentine, which I'm not gonna spoil who that is if like you have not read this, but we got to meet Valentine. We got to see Clary kind of like learn how to be a shadow hunter. We also got something happens to Simon, and y'all, I feel so bad for him, but he's like becoming one of my favorite characters. I've always loved Jace, so we got to see that in his dynamic with Claire, which is a really shocking turn. But overall, I really did enjoy this one. Like I said, I gave it 4 stars. I think at this time I was still pretty much like struggling through my reading slump, but it was like on the edge of like getting better. So yes, absolutely recommend this series. It's perfect for like if you want a fantasy world, but like you still want like that human aspect. Like, it's so easy to understand in my opinion. So yeah, that was the second book I read. I read Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. Y'all, this book literally had me giggling, had me screaming. I loved this book so much. It had me hooked from like the very first line in the book. From the very first chapter, I already knew that like I was gonna love this. And if you know, I've only read Abby Jimenez's short story from the like the Meet Cute series on Valentine's. And so like on my 2024 TBR, I like really wanted to dive into her reading. So yes, I was planning to read yours truly, but then people were like, you need to read Part of Your World first, even though they're like interconnected standalones. But I'm so glad I did, because I absolutely love this one. Like I said, 5 stars. Just the 2 different worlds. You have this the lady who's a doctor, and she like comes from money, and she just like, she feels like the weight of her words on her shoulders with like her family legacy. And then you have the guy who's just like, he also has a family legacy in his town, but it's a small town, you know, it's giving, it's, you know, everybody's just connected there. And so she starts to come out there, and she just starts to see, and as much as she wants that life, she just feels so obligated to keep up with her family legacy in the medical field. And so just seeing their worlds like combine, and seeing how they work it out, as well as the goat. You guys, I am so obsessed with Chloe the goat. I want to go. I want to go so I can dress her in pajamas. But yeah, literally, I love it. Daniel is top tier boyfriend material, y'all, and he can cook. If you don't, which I don't think I ever said this, but I don't like to cook. So when a guy can cook and he likes to cook, he already gets brownie points, because like whoever I'm marrying is gonna have to love to cook. Like I'll cook a meal every now and again, but like I am not someone who like looks forward to cooking at all. So just that there alone had me. But yeah, like I said, I gave that one 5 stars. And then started If You Give a Single Dad a Nanny. I was just like, after reading Part of Your World, I'm like, I just need something, you know, cute and light again, something that's just gonna make me giggle. And I was just like in a little rom-com-y mood, so I picked this one up. I've heard a lot of talk about it. I actually read it on Kindle Unlimited, but since I liked it, I ended up like having to get the paperback, because that's just what we do as readers. But this one was also super cute. I was like finding myself like reading through it like pretty fast. I think I finished this in like 2 days. But it's about a single dad, which we love single dads. I just find it so cute, their devotion for their kids. But a young lady moves in next to him who is younger. I think there's like almost like a 10-year age difference, if I remember correctly. But she's younger. She's like this vibrant person. She does art for a living, whereas the dad is like a businessman. Him and his brothers, they own like a very successful realtor company, I think, or finance company or something like that. So he's like very suit and tie, very like business-like, where she's just like, she's just living her life. She has this dog, Waffles, and his daughter ends up meeting Waffles, and this man is not a dog person. He thinks of germs, but like his daughter is just in love with Waffles. She loves the neighbor. She just looks forward to seeing them, and so obviously him trying to make his daughter happy, he does what he can so that she can see him, so that she can see the neighbor, which I think her name Marlo. Yeah, her name is Marlo. But yeah, so the guy, he has a nanny for his daughter, but the nanny has to quit due to family issues. So now he's in the process of finding a nanny. The daughter really wants Marlo to be her new nanny. And so yeah, he already is not a fan of Marlo. He has his reasons, but it's like very much like his own issues as to why he like doesn't want Marlo as the nanny. But yeah, you just get to see that dynamic change. You get to see him like kind of soften, and just like seeing how much the little girl loves Marlo and their connection. It kind of reminds me of Heartless with Willa and Luke. Is that the baby's name? Is that the son's name? I think his name was Luke. But yeah, seeing like how Willow came the nanny, and like you see that dynamic of her and Kate, like I just was reminded of that when I was seeing these two connect after like she started nannying for his daughter. So absolutely recommend that one if you're just looking for something cute, something that's just like not heavy at all. It's just a light read. You pick it up if you're bored. Like definitely recommend that one. I gave it 4 stars. But then the next book I read was actually an ARC, which is actually released now, but I'll put the cover here. And it was actually my reading vlog too. But I read Puck Block by S.J. Silvis. It is the 3rd book in the Biloxi U world. This is a hockey world, hockey romances. And this was a brother's best friend. And it was really good. The brother and his best friend has basically ruined every single relationship this girl can have because they're being protective. The best friend was pretty much raised with them, so like it's almost like he was her brother too, but not, or less. That's kind of just how people kind of see it, even though they've never seen it that way. And she makes a deal with the best friend that like, if you keep my brother off my back and y'all let me just live my life with me and like let me do what I want to do as a college student, then like there was no trade-off on it, but it was just like, please just like let me live my life unbothered by you guys. And so he agrees, but it's kind of hard because he has always find her attractive, and he starts to finally act on those feelings, and like even though he like really doesn't want to, he starts to act on those feelings so that he can keep her from meeting other guys, even though like he continues to say like, you know, I'm gonna step back and I'm gonna keep your brother off of your back. So yeah, very interesting. Once again, I was just in a rom-com mood, so it was like super quick to get through. And I will say, like, I was kind of like, okay, like I have younger brothers, but I'm like, even if I had older brothers, like this was a little extreme. Like the way, like I get now why the best friend probably would have acted like that, but the brother, that was just insane. Like he just like would not let this girl be successful with any kind of guy. Like even in high school, they would spread rumors about her, so like men wouldn't be like, the boys wouldn't be interested in her. Like just like everything that a brother could do to annoy you, he did, and he tagged his best friend along with him. So the fact that she even gave him a chance, girl, he wouldn't have got a chance out of me. But then the next book I read was Tinsel, which is the 4th book in the Lark Cove series. This one focuses on Sophia, and we meet Sophia in the 1st book. Oh, did I say what I gave that one? I gave it a 4. I gave it a 3.5, but I rounded it up to 4 on Goodreads. But yes, the next book I read was Tinsel. And like I said, we meet Sophia in the 1st book. And in the 1st book, she is perceived as just this spoiled child. She's the youngest of 3. She was raised in a family of money, and she has just basically lived her life. She's like the one who doesn't do anything. She doesn't really have a career. She's just kind of living through her trust fund. You know, she's just kind of in the media. And so she does an interview where she thinks it's going to go well, but the person who interviews her actually ends up like highlighting all the bad facts about her and making her basically seem exactly how we saw her in the first book. And so she decides to go to Lark Cove, where her brother is, and just to kind of, you know, get out of the spotlight and to kind of just focus on herself. And so her brother and his wife, who were the couple of the first book, they end up going out of town, but they task her with helping with the bar that they own, and she ends up meeting the bartender. And so he's like teaching her basically how to work, like even from sweeping to mixing a drink. And they end up becoming friends, and she's only there for like 2 weeks, I think. And so they decide, hey, let's like, obviously their attraction is there, so they decide to do a little fling while she's there, because obviously she has her life back in New York. And so she's like, this can't, and I'm also not in a position to be in a long-term relationship because she's been married twice and been divorced. So she's just like, I just want to have fun. And he's kind of the same way. He's just like, he doesn't have room in his life for a relationship. But obviously once that little fling is up and she goes back to New York, they go through these ups and downs of like wanting to see each other, knowing it can't work, going through denial. And yeah, they like they like end up not being together for like, I think almost close to a year. But eventually, you know, they do come back and talk with each other, and we get to see how that plays out, if they stay together or not. But yeah, I truly really did enjoy this one. This one probably was one of my favorites out of it, and I think I gave this one a 4-star. Yeah, I gave it a 4-star. I just love their connection. I loved like when Sophia was able to like put her pride aside in situations, especially when it came to his family, because he grew up where like you kind of just, the person you were supposed to like marry is like supposed to be for beneficial reasons, as far as the bloodline of his culture. And when she meets his family, like you can tell like the old Sophia that we knew like would have definitely acted so different. So just seeing how she acted in those situations, and just seeing how she just like when she went back to New York, like the progress and like the things she made like to better herself was just like, there was just so much character development. And I think that's just, it really was highlighted, especially since like from the first book, we just like she really left a bad taste in all of our mouths. So yes, like I said, I really love that one. I definitely recommend this series, like seriously. But then I read Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. I actually read this for the Thrills and Chills book club, and you guys, I don't think I have ever read a book that, I've never read a book that like did what this book did. This book, I couldn't even rate it, because it felt like I was reading a true crime. Like it felt like I was actually reading an event that actually happened to someone, because it was so real. Like what happened, like this actually does happen in real life. And so it just kind of felt like I couldn't rate it, because I'm like, as far as the writing style, like I love the writing style. I could rate that a 5 stars, but just the story in general, I just could not rate this because of the contents of the book. But it's about 3 sisters, and the oldest sister goes missing when she's in college. And so years later, the 2 sisters have not necessarily moved on with their lives, but they've adjusted to like basically not having their sister. They never got confirmation of like what happened to her. They never found a body or anything. So like they still both have their doubts, like if their sister is even dead or not. But the 2 come together because one of the sisters, her husband is killed, and so they come together, and like they haven't talked in years. The 2 sisters have not talked in years over a situation, and once they come together, they start to see things, and they are trying to figure out, you know, what really happened and to her husband. But in the scheme of all of that, they end up coming across things that happened to Julia. And yeah, it's very, what's the word I'm looking for? It's very descriptive. Very descriptive, very gruesome, and just like, I'm just trying to think of how to explain it. It's just, you have to be prepared. Definitely look at the trigger warnings, because it really touches on serious topics. But like I said, also it was a very intriguing story. So yeah, if you can handle that kind of stuff, I'd recommend it. But like I said, definitely check out the trigger warnings, because there's some serious ones in here if you are triggered to anything. But yeah, so that was the next book I read. Y'all, my mouth is like, it's ready to give up. But then the next book I read was another arc. I read It's Honestly Yours by Christina and Becca Ritchie, and this was my first book by them. Addicted to You was like, I was supposed to read that like 2 months ago, but didn't get to it. But I really did like this one. I loved it. Was so different, and I definitely see now why people say they love Christina and Becca Ritchie writing when it comes to a found family, because they just did it so like elegantly, and like so like, I just really didn't realize how much I had fallen in love with the family that was like built. But this book focuses on a family of scam artists or con artists. Well, two families connected as con artists, and it's connected by the two best friends that are their mothers. And so they've had kids, and they have pretty much raised their kids and incorporated their kids into their scams. So this is like all their kids know. Their kids don't really have careers. They have just lived their life being scammers and pulling scams that their parents have organized. And so the daughters of the two moms, which are best friends, they've become best friends, and they decided they do no longer want to be scammers. They want to live a normal life. They want to have a job. They want to have their apartment. They don't want to have to run from city to city. And so they basically sneak off and try to start a new life. But one of the brothers, he ends up following them. And so in his defense, he's like, I'm just here to make sure everything goes fine, because eventually he's like, you know, you guys are gonna come back. Like, this is not gonna work for you guys. You guys are scammers. This is not what's gonna happen. But then it turns out where, you know, they really start to build a life there. They're enjoying their life where they go. The brother is adjusting, and you just get to see how like that turns into like pretty much all of the kids being there. Not that all of them are ready to give up scamming, but they're all there, and they are basically running from like their parents, because they, you know, even if some of them don't want to give up scamming, they still don't want to do it under their parents. They just are realizing that things have never been always truthful to them. So I gave it 4 stars. The book ended on a cliffhanger, so I'm like, the fact that this was an arc, I don't know how long I'm gonna have to wait for the second one, but hopefully we get it soon, because like I said, it ended on a cliffhanger, and I'm just like, I need to know what happened. I need to know how this continues. Like, don't leave me hanging like this. But then the next book I read was also on my Kindle, but I read Blonde Hair, Blue Eyes by Karen Schlive. This is the prequel to Pretty Girls, but I read it second, and I actually recommend that you read it second, because I feel like if you read it second, you understand more of it, especially after you get like the other two sisters like point of views, and you also get the dad's point of view in Pretty Girls. Whereas Blonde Hair, Blue Eyes, did I say that right? Yeah, that one focuses on the sister that went missing, and it focuses on her time like right before she went missing. And so yeah, I definitely enjoyed that one, and I could not rate it as well. I was just like, no. Yeah, like I said, my personal preference is that it's better read after you read Pretty Girls, but I can also see why people would want to read it before. I read the last book in the Lark Cove series, which this one was a short story, but it's timeless and it focuses on Aubrey, who is Sophia's sister, and she is basically the sister who has taken over the family business along with her brother. And she is like this businesswoman. She loves New York. She lives, breathe, eat, work. And so, you know, dating is pretty much just like a second. It's kind of just not a priority for her. And also in the business that she's in, like women, usually men are CEOs. And so she's also just trying to, I guess, what's the word? She's trying to prove herself in a sense, because being a woman of this like huge company and everybody before her has like grown the company, so like there's already this stigma on her that she's like either gonna let the company plummet or, you know, not do anything. And so she's just already has like a lot of eyes on her, of people. And so yeah, that's like kind of what her life is about. But she meets this cop that we meet in Tinsel, and this cop is relentless. This cop is like, if I want something, I'm gonna go get it. So he wants Aubrey, and he is just like, I am gonna do whatever it takes. He's like calling her, he shows up to her job, but it's all like, it's not in like a stalkerish way. It's like in a, I'm gonna be persistent, but I'm gonna also like respect your boundaries in a sense. And so I loved it. I loved their like, I just loved how it all played out. I love like how Aubrey like played hard to get, and like I love how the guy was just like, he was just so pure and so honest about like what he wanted, and he was not gonna take anything else in a respectful way. I gotta put that in there because that can sound so stalkerish, but I promise it was like in the most respectful and kind way. So I gave this one, I think, at 4 stars as well. Yeah, no, 4.5. And so I just think this was just the perfect way to end the Lark Cove series. I'm definitely gonna miss these characters, but I cannot wait to dive into another Devanny Perry series. Last but not least, I read the 3rd book in the Mortal Instrument series, which is City of Glass. You guys, I gave this one 4.5 as well. No, 4.25, sorry. But this one, I'm talking about, this one you could not breathe. It was full of angst. It was full of just high adrenaline. It was full of high stakes. And so this one really, like, I feel like this one was giving what like the last 200 pages of City of Ashes was giving, but it was giving it through the entire book. And we also just got to actually travel in this book. We got to go back to where like the Shadowhunters' original land was, so we got out of like New York. And so yeah, and we also just uncover a lot of stuff. And this book, I love the ending. I loved it. It definitely, like, it's a good stopping point if you want to take a break from the series before you go into the 4th book, because the main focus that happens in the first 3 books is like resolved in this one. Obviously, like, I read the summary of the 4th book, and definitely like the story continues, but like if you wanted to go like event wise, the 3rd book in the series is like a good stopping point, because like you don't dive into a new issue yet. You like close out the issue and you get like somewhat of a happy ending, I guess, because technically this is not the end, so I can't really say if it's truly a happy ending because it's not the ending. But like I said, you do get to wrap up like kind of like this like when you read ACOTAR and you read the first 3 books, and it's like the 3rd book like was a good stopping point before you dive into like A Court of Frost and Starlight. That's what this was giving. So yeah, I don't know when I'm gonna pick up the 4th book. It is on my TBR this month, so hopefully I get to it. But knowing that like I'm like at a pretty good stopping point, I'm not like in a rush to pick it up, because I do have a lot of other books on my TBR, which that will be my next video, is my TBR for May. But yeah, So definitely recommend this series. Like I said, this series is just like so easy to get through. It's like, I would consider it a YA fantasy, which I think that's actually what it is. But yeah, it's just like so easy to understand. You get like really good information on the characters, and you know, I just love like how we got to see, like, I'm gonna say temporary happy endings for each character in this book. But and I say temporary because, like I said, it's not the end of the series. So if it's anything like I'm expecting, everything else is about to go back up into flames in the next book. But yeah, so highly recommend this series, like I said, when I talk about the second book. But those are, I think that's all the books. Is that all the books? Yeah, those are all the books that I read this month. Like I said, I had a pretty good reading month. I did only have 1 5-star, but I had some that were really close, and I truly did enjoy my reading experience. I spent a lot of time in bed sleeping because my wisdom teeth removal, but when I did get to read, I was enjoying it. So yeah, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video. Let me know what your 5-star read of the month was. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video.